Okay, let's start. Bezrat Hashem. This shiur, we're going to talk about the idea of a flame. We know that in Kabbalah, a flame is a very, very special thing. And I'd like to explain why a flame and a candle and a flame and meditating by a candle is a very, very known thing. Why, especially, what's so special about a flame? We'll start off Bezrat Hashem with a pasuk in Shmuel. We have a pasuk in Shmuel in Perek Chav Beis, which is the 22nd Perek in Shmuel Beis, the second Shmuel. There's two parts of Shmuel. Shmuel Beis, Perek Chav Beis, Shmuel writes, Ki ato neiri Hashem, Hashem, you are my candle, v'Hashem yagia choshki, and you Hashem will light up my darkness. Now there's a question over here. Why does it have to say twice Hashem? Why doesn't it just say Ki ato neiri Hashem, Hashem, you are my candle, v'yagia choshki, and you light up my darkness? Why does it have to say again, v'Hashem yagia choshki, and Hashem will light up my darkness? To answer this, we have to first bring down a pasuk in Mishlei that Shlomo HaMelech says. Shlomo HaMelech writes in Mishlei, in Perek Chof, pasuk Chof Zayin, Ner Hashem nishmas Odom, choifes kol cheder batim. Shlomo HaMelech gives us an idea of what our soul. Our soul is the candle. The candle of Hashem is our soul, meaning that Hashem shines through our soul. Right? In each of us have a godly soul, and in this godly soul shines Hashem. What is Hashem? The name of Hashem, Yud Kei Vav Kei, because he says Ner Hashem, which is Yud Kei, wasn't one of the names of Hashem. Now we have to understand how, where, what, when, how. How does an neshama represent? It's like Hashem's candle, shining Hashem's name. Where do we find that? So we first have to preface what we speak about many times in the shiurim over here, that when Hashem created this world, He revealed Himself through 10 sfirot. And we know this from Kabbalah, from the Zohar, from the Medrash Rabbah, and from the Sefer Yetzirah, that God revealed Himself through 10 sfirot. Let's just say quickly what the sfirot are. The first one is Keter, the next is Chokhmah, which is wisdom. Next is Bina, which is contemplation. And we will explain what the difference between wisdom and contemplating is. The next one is Chesed, kindness. Gvura is after Chesed. Then we have Teferes. Then we have Netzach, Hod, Yisoid, and Malchus, which equals 10. Yud Kei Vav Kei has 4 letters, which is the first is Yud. The first Yud is representing the sphere of wisdom. Now, why is that? Because if you write a Yud on a piece of paper, a Yud is like a tiny little ball. It's a tiny little constricted ball. It's nothing. It's like it's not developed, right? It's a little tiny. Kabbalah teaches us that wisdom, the sphere of wisdom, what is wisdom? Wisdom is when a person has all of a sudden a flash of wisdom, a huge idea, and just as quick as it comes, it goes right out the door. What happens afterwards comes Bina. Bina is the Hey. It said there's Yud, then there's Hey. Hey is Keneged Bina, which is contemplating. Why? Hey is taking the ball and basically stretching it out and becoming wider. That means you're taking the idea, that quick flash of wisdom, and understanding it and developing the idea. How do you develop it? We'll give an example. Somebody all of a sudden has a flash that I'm a quick runner. So that's a quick, and then it goes out the window. But by contemplating on that notion that I'm a quick runner, I can develop an idea now. Develop something that's more broad, there's more information. There's something more going on. If I say that me and another person and I are going to have a marathon, and I know that I run quicker because, right? So I know that what? I will get to the finish line first. From the wisdom that I run quicker, I can develop and contemplate on a certain result that's outside of the wisdom, a next step. So Bina is building on the wisdom, that quick flash, and using it to develop. We're developing the idea. That's the idea. That's Yud and that's the Hey. So each person has the Yud, which is the wisdom. Each person has the Hey, which is from the wisdom we take it and we build ideas, which essentially we'd call, right? What's it called? When somebody When somebody has the brain thing, right? When he's brainstorming. Brainstorming is taking the idea, these quick flashes, and trying to develop them and working on them. Then the next thing is Yud K, and then the next letter is Vav. We know Vav, a very, 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 very important thing in the Sfirot is that I said Chesed and through Yesod is 6 Sfirot, and it's all really included in Tiferes. Now, why is it all included in Tiferes? I'm not going to get into it. We got into the other shiurim, because really Tiferes means the emotion. All those 6 Sfirot is based on the emotion of a person. Kindness, strength, beauty, it's all emotions. Now, these emotions is really 6. What are those emotions? Where are emotions of a human being found? In the heart of a person, right? The wisdom and the contemplation, it goes on in the brain. That's why we know the brain has 2 pathways. In science, if you look, one is for Chokhmah, which is the wisdom, and one is building on the wisdom, which is contemplating. Taking A and learning B from A. Creativity. Now, emotion is in the heart. Emotion encompasses these 6 Sfirot, which is the Vav of Yud Kei Vav Kei. What's the last Hey? We know the last Hey represents Malchut, which is kingship. Why? That's action. Why action? Because when a person does a mitzvah, and when a person does Torah, he's doing an action, a physical action, through his speech, right? Or he's giving tzedakah, he's taking his hand and doing. Why does a person do that? Because the last Hey represents, not like the first Hey. The first Hey we said represents that, the ball opening up and more wide, creativity. The last Hey is going on like this. The last Hey is going on the kingship of God. Hey is Hashem, going on Hey. We know that Hey represents God. Why am I doing these mitzvot? Because of the what? It's called Ol Malchus Shamayim. Because I'm accepting the yoke of kingship of Hashem. Whatever Hashem commands, the will of Hashem is, I do. So we see that what? We understand that the Ner of Hashem, meaning when my neshama, which encompasses these Sfirot, these 10 Sfirot, is really shining, what? Shines from that Yud Kei Vav Kei. So I am the candle of Hashem, because through me there's a shine of the Yud Kei Vav Kei, which comes through the Chokhmah, which is wisdom, through the contemplation, which is contemplating, which we said the Yud and the Hey. Then the Vav is the 6 attributes of emotion, and then that last Hey is kingship. Through this we can answer the question we had before. We asked the question, why does it have to say again in Shmuel that you are my candle, Hashem, right? And Hashem lights what? Hashem will light up my darkness. Meaning, what do you mean you are my candle, Hashem? We just explained. The soul encompasses the Yud Kei Vav Kei. So meaning, what's lighting me up? My neshama, which is Yud Kei Vav Kei, which is Hashem. But why do we have to say that? Hashem will light up darkness. The answer is like this. We know there's a big sefer there's a famous sefer called Mishnas Chasidim, which is from the biggest students of the Arizal. The one who wrote it, his name is Rav Emanuel Riki. He was a tremendous makobel. And he writes over there in his sefer Mishnas Chasidim, in the 6th chapter, in the 6th parak, he writes that each avera that a person does, each avera has its root in the name Yud Kei Vav Kei, and some averot is you're being plagued the Yud, which means you're being plagued, essentially you're ruining the wisdom. Some averot, some sins, you're ruining your contemplating. Each avera has its root in Yud Kei Vav Kei, and each one is creating it's destroying something. But we know, so through this we understand that a person essentially, even though he has the light of Hashem in him, he could destroy it by doing averot. What is avera? Avar. It's removing. You're removing the yud or the k or the hey, which you say k when you say the name of Hashem, or the vav or the last hey. And therefore what happens? You become dark. You have darkness because it's not shining anymore. The only thing that's shining is the God is shining. Where do we see such an idea? We see such an idea by Cain. When Cain killed his brother Hevel, what happens? He came to Hashem and he said, he did tshuva, but he told the Rebbeinu Shalom, I'm scared of the animals. What happened? Before you weren't scared of the animals? So over there, the Medrash explains that when Cain, before he did the chet, his tzelem alekim, what is the tzelem in the image of Hashem? We just said the Yud Kei Vav Kei, which is the 10 Sfirot, was intact. It was intact completely. So when the animal saw godliness, it was afraid. It couldn't go near it. But when Cain murdered somebody, which is one of the biggest sins, especially in his brother, he removed a part of the Yud Kei Vav Kei. Therefore, he lost the Tzelem Alekim. So he told Hashem, what can I do now? They're gonna kill me. So Hashem said, don't worry, write Yud Kei Vav Kei on your forehead, because through the tshuva that you did, I'm gonna give back the Yud Kei Vav Kei. That is what Shmuel Navi is saying. Shmuel Navi is saying, Hashem, you are my light. You are my candle. Yud Kei Vav Kei. But even in a place where I did Avero, but if I do tshuva, Hashem will come a second time and what? And give back the Yud Kei Vav Kei that Tzelem Elikim. That's a pshat in Shmuel Navi. And that's a pshat through what we said over here with Mishlei. Now we have to understand a lot of depth. Now we have to understand. So we understand basically that we understand the idea of a candle. The candle represents the neshama because it's the Yud Kei Vav Kei, which is the svirot that we said. And sometimes chas v'shalom we can lose it, and we get it back by doing tshuva, because tshuva also means in English returning. It's what avera is, that it removes. Tshuva is that it brings that which was removed back to you, which is the Tzelem Elikim, and therefore that's what Shmuel Navi is saying Hashem a second time. Now, we have to understand, though, we have to understand at a deeper level the idea of a flame. The idea of a flame and a candle and all that. And we'll see how it ties into everything we just said. But then we know, the Medrash says that, the Rashi brings it down in Chumash, that when they had the menorah, in the Mishkan, they built it. So they said, it says over there in the pasuk a certain word, and Rashi brings the medrash, and that word we understand that Hashem, it was for people. Why was all the wicks? It says that all the wicks were there were seven candles. All of them were facing the middle. Why is that? To show that if somebody wanted to say that God needs light, God forbid, then why would they make it that everything is facing the middle? It's all spreading out to light up the room more. The reason why they did it to show, of course, that Hashem doesn't need light, chas v'shalom. God's beyond everything. It's to remind us that we have the light inside of us. Inside of us. All of it is coming into the middle wick, which is what? The middle is me, my body. It's all in me. Meaning, what's inside my body? All the all the shchina, which is the shchina, the neshama. Because we just said the shchina is the Yud Kei Vav Kei. Right? It's the idea of that godliness inside of us. I'm sorry? So this is what Rashi brings down, because Rashi says, why did it have to go to the middle? Rashi says, because Hashem didn't want people to have a way to say, oh, God needs light. Here, obviously, God doesn't need light. Why is it? It's to remind us. So we see that the 7 lights, the candles of the menorah, have a tremendous thing that they don't just teach us about something in general, they teach us about ourselves. We're compared to the menorah. Now we have to understand something very important over here. We have to understand the actual physicality of a flame and a candle and all that. Now let's start. On a basic level, there's 5 things to a candle. There is the cup, the vessel that holds it, right? The cup that holds. There's the oil that's inside the cup. That's the second thing. The third thing is the wick. And the fourth thing is the flame. But in the flame, there's 2 flames, meaning there's 2 colors. The Zohar writes in many places that in a flame, there's 2 flames, there's 2 lights. One is called the dark light, and one is called the bright light. If you look at a flame, the color that's attached to the wick is the dark flame. And the one that protrudes above the wick, that's already above, that is the bright flame. Now, let's understand a few things. We have to understand a few things, how it works, the flame, the physicality parts. We know that to understand spiritual, we first have to understand the physical makeup. Obviously, without the vessel, we would have no flame, we would have nothing. The vessel constricts that we can have everything. Without a vessel, obviously, simple logic. Why do we need the oil? We'll get to it in a second. We need a wick because the fire needs a place, right? That in order for the fire to what? In order for the fire to burn, we need the wick. But the problem is, if the fire didn't have anything else, then it would burn the wick in 3 seconds, or the flame would just go out, extinguish itself by itself. So now we need something else. We need oil. What does oil do? It's funny, because if you think about oil as a paradox. Oil, what it does is, it brings the flame to the wick so that it should burn, right? Otherwise, right? But it's interesting, but it does a second thing. Not just that but it should burn slowly. The only way that the flame doesn't extinguish or burn out the wick in 1, 2, 3 is because the oil constricts the flame, that the flame doesn't have that strength anymore to eat up the wick 1, 2, 3. And that we see by what? By the black fire. The black fire is what's keeping the wick going. But that's only because of the oil. So we need all 5. You understand? We need the vessel. Simple logic. We need the wick because otherwise there would be no flame that would be burning. We need the oil because the flame would burn for 3 seconds without the oil, right? And then we have, what did we say? And then we have the hot. That's 3 things. But in the flame there's 2 ideas. The black flame is what's connected to the wick, which keeps it burning. I'm sorry? No, that's not on a fire. There's 2 main parts of the fire. Let's continue. 1 second, Now, the upper flame, so the oil does really, it's kind of a paradox. It brings that it could burn, but what? That it shouldn't burn quickly. Now, there's another thing the oil does. The flame itself doesn't have the capacity of black and of dark and a bright flame. It's the oil that has those 2 properties that gives to the flame and therefore through the oil. So we see that oil does 2 things. Meaning, not just the paradox that we said, that because of the oil, the flame now can stay with the wick instead of burning out 1, 2, 3, but also that it causes the actual dark flame and the bright flame. That is the idea of the oil. Now, let's understand a few things now. Now, so we have the physical makeup of the flame and the vessel and everything. Let's explain this now. We just said that the ner, though, the physical is really a spiritual, like we said the whole beginning with the svirot. Where does this come into a human being? Let's explain. I want to start off with the wick. The Zohar writes that the wick of the flame represents the body of a human being. Let's explain. When you have a flame and a wick, the wick is representing, in the spiritual, the wick is really the human body. Now, attached to the wick, we said, there's a flame. The flame itself, which is the light, there's 2 lights. There's the dark light, and then there's the bright light, which essentially comes from the oil. The oil gives it that koach. Otherwise, we said that the flame would just burn out 1, 2, 3, or the wick would be burnt. Either one, there'll be no flame. What is the difference between the dark and the bright flame? Because the Zohar also says about the dark and the bright flame. Let's explain something amazing. We know that Reb Chaim Vital, the Talmud of the Rizal, writes in Eitz Chaim that every Jew has 2 souls. The first soul, which is the main soul, is, like we say every morning in Shachris, God, you blew a soul into me. That soul is a piece of God that Hashem gave, a piece of Himself. We spoke in other shiur what that means. We're not going to get into that now because it's not that's not really what we're focusing on. But the point is, that's the main soul. That's called the godly soul. Then Hashem created the natural soul, which is the animal soul, which gives life, which is, which gives the simple life. Now, by a Jew, there's a very, very important thing we have to understand. There's 4 klipot. A klipa is the part where Hashem created to the kedusha. There's the dark side. A Jew's animal soul is from the last klipa. The first 3 klipot, which is called fire, esh, ruach, which is wind, and anan, which is cloud, has no good in it. And the Baal Tanya brings down from the Arizal that is the souls of the non-Jews. They don't have a godly soul, and even their animal soul has no good in it. The soul of a Jew, we have the godly soul, but even the animal soul has some good in it because it's called klipa noga. Why is it called noga? Noga, it means, it's the 4th. Klipa noga, that's what's called. This klipa noga means from touching. It touches both sides. It could be good or bad. Where does this klipa noga come from? The Arizal teaches us it comes from The root of it is from the Eitz Hadas. Because what was the Eitz Hadas that that other nation ate from? Adam ate from the tree. This tree could have been the good or the bad. It's called Eitz Hadas Toy Virda. It had both. It had the properties of good and the properties of bad. Our job as a Jew is to take this animal soul and to take it and to what? Turn it into a soul that only uses the good part, the tov of it. And that's how we actually fix the sin of Adam. The main way we fix the sin of Adam is when we take something like, let's say food. Food is from the animal soul. It needs to eat. But if I eat now because I want to serve Hashem, then I'm using it for the tov, which is what? Memela becomes good. I'm using it for the service of Hashem. Now, let's explain. Every Jew, even the lowest of Jews, has a spiritual spark of him, which is the godly soul, that no matter how low he is, all of a sudden out of nowhere, he can give up his life for Hashem, literally. Let's give an example. The Gemara in Avodah Zarah writes, Elazar ben Dordia, the Gemara writes a famous story that there was a person that he went to every single prostitute in the world. One day he heard of a prostitute that lived on the other side of the world, and he said, I have to have her. And he traveled over mountains and oceans to come just for 4 seconds of stupidity. He was so sunken into of sexual lust. He comes to the woman, the Gemara speaks at the end that she reprimanded him. And he learned from her that he's wasting his life. He fell down between 2 mountains and he started crying to Hashem. He said, Hashem, I don't know what to do. The Gemara says he had such tshuva that he died. His neshama left him. Why is that? Because his godly soul was so, he became so part of the godly soul that it completely consumed him, and it just went back to Hashem, to its source. Where does that come from? This comes from the godly soul. This is something that's beyond wisdom. It's beyond nature. We can't understand. The Arizal writes, this is something that's beyond. How could somebody his whole life live a certain way and in 1 second say, Hashem, how about all the Jews that they weren't religious, and then the Nazis came and they gave their lives up because they said we don't want to convert, and in the Inquisition, because that comes from that. It's unexplainable. Because that comes from above nature. That's not the soul that gives you life. That's the soul in you that's connected to God, which everybody has. That soul is the bright light of the flame. The light, the flame, the bright light that's above the wick. There's a second thing. There's a second type of thing when a person goes through a certain situation in life and he's woken up. But not so suddenly, more where he doesn't become one with Hashem completely, but to the idea where he realizes that all physicality is nothing, it's stupid. What happens is, he flips around. This is what we said, this is the Klipa Noga. The first time when a person just gives us, when we Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, that's Hashem. That's the godly soul. I just want you, Hashem, no matter what. He doesn't even understand. We don't understand why. The second one is where a person has a certain realization that it's not from something, it's from a certain logic. That Hashem created the world for a purpose, and everything just becomes, he realizes the whole world is just 70 to 100, whatever it is. What am I doing here, wasting all my life? It's not just from that where you faint for love for Hashem. It's more just it's more of a logical point. What is that? That is when the godly soul shines on to the animal soul. The first way has nothing to do with the animal soul. It's the godly soul completely. But sometimes a person will wake up, what happened? Where's that coming from? Because that's coming from the divine soul that's shining onto the animal soul. And the person says, hey, what am I doing? All of a sudden from his emotion, a person, by the way, we know, a person a tendency is that he wants pleasure. All the pleasure in the world is all terrible things. So his tendency is, his natural state is, from his animal souls, I want pleasure. All of a sudden, the godly soul shines down and says, relax. Wait, what am I doing? It switches the emotion that I want pleasure. It switches those attributes, those 6 attributes that we said. What happens? That's the dark light. Why is that the dark light? Let's explain. Because the dark light essentially is the animal soul. The animal soul is the body. Because it's the body. When we say the animal soul, we mean the body. We mean the body that wants, I want food, I want women. That comes from the animal soul. That's the wick, we said from the Zohar. Which flame is attached to the wick? The black flame. Because the black flame it's a level. It's a high level, but it's not the highest level. It's the level that I come to a realization that I want to serve Hashem because what else is going on over here? Because it's a logic reasoning. It comes from a place that I can understand. Because it's only like a shine that comes down from it's not that I'm tapped into the higher godly soul. I'm tapped into the level where the godly soul shines on. But then there's the higher level. The higher level it's not touching the wick. The brightness shoots out, it's above. Because that is above the body, that's above reason, that's above logic. That is the godly soul that the Rizal says there's no reason, there's nothing a human being can understand. That is when a human being can give his life up on the line for God. Like we see in all the generations, a Jew who didn't put on tefillin for 30 years. You want to convert to Christianity? Otherwise we'll kill you. That I'm not going to do. What happened? You're eating pig, you're eating this, you're not keeping Shabbat, what do you care? That I can't do. That's the godly soul. No, the Klipa Noga is the godly soul. So that is what's the godly soul? It's not the godly soul, it's the what? It's the animal soul, but by a Jew we said the animal soul also has good in it. But so how do you come to that good? Only when it shines down, and therefore that's the black fire. Because it's a lower level. That's right. No. The Klipa Noga is the wick. The black fire eats up the wick, which is the body. It turns the body into what? That the body, he doesn't want his body desires. He wants a beyond that, which is the spiritual. But the black is only a shine from the actual godly soul, which is the actual bright light. The bright light is not just anymore that I want to go beyond and do the spiritual. The bright light is that I want to become completely one with Hashem. Now let's explain. The problem is, many times people get that rush of excitement, and it could be, what happens? Person says, I want to serve Hashem, and it goes on for about a day, and it's over with. We all have that. That's where the oil comes in. That's why we need the oil. So far we explained, we need the wick because the wick is the body. We need the flame because the flame has two levels. The lower level, the black flame, it eats the actual wick up because it turns the bodily thing around. It turns from the Klipa Noga, which the natural state of a person is he wants the evil because he wants pleasure, but from the wrong side. And then he switches that around because of what? Because he sees that there's something beyond. But that comes from a logical standpoint. It comes from something that we can understand. It's a spiritual level, but it's something we can understand. Then is the higher level, which comes from the godly soul, which has nothing to do with the wick anymore. Because it has nothing to do with the wick. The wick is the body, which is the animal soul. So it's above the wick, and therefore, that's when a person just says, I'm giving up my life for Hashem. Hey buddy, you didn't keep Shabbat. When was the last time you mentioned God? That is inner. It's called the Pintel Yid in Judaism. It's that point of Judaism that you can't even define because it's so small that you don't know where it is. It's above the human anything. That is the bright part of the flame. Now we're going to explain why I need the oil. We said in the physicality we need the oil because without the oil, the flame would burn out right away. In spirituality, if we didn't have the oil, what would happen with the flame? So the flame comes to the wick, very nice, because it has that. Oh, I want to change my life. I want to get to Hashem. I want beyond, which is spirituality. Then the next day, he's back clubbing, he's back drinking, he's back this, he's back making money, all that. It's all his money. What happened? The answer is because we know that nothing's sustaining it. The oil is sustaining the flame to what? That it should burn the wick, which is the bodily, but burn it slowly, that it lasts a long time. What is the oil in spirituality? Kabbalah teaches us that oil in spirituality, shemen equals chachma, wisdom. What is chachma, wisdom? Chachma is made up of two words. Koyach ma. Chochma is ches chaf, switch them around, becomes chaf, ches, which is koach, ma. That means the person is basically understanding my wisdom. What is the biggest wisdom of a human being to understand? Koach ma, what koach do I have? I'm a nothing. To understand that there's only Hashem, and everything you could do is only with Hashem's ability that He helps you. Meaning, humility. The biggest wisdom is called bittul in Chassidus. Bittul is when you what? You mevatel yourself. What does that mean, mevatel yourself? You become there's two levels. Now let's explain. There's two levels of being mevatel yourself to God. Let's explain. The first level of being mevatel yourself to God is what we just said. Using the wisdom that I can understand. What's that wisdom? The wisdom is, listen, I understand, I have a purpose. I have a job to do. Going after money, going after this, obviously is not the purpose. So you use your wisdom and you switch around. What are you switching around? You're being mevatel your ego, which is your animal soul, and your bodily desires for what? For Hashem, to go and learn Torah and do mitzvahs and all that. That is the lower. That's the lower. What are you doing? You're nullifying your body to spirituality, to which is beyond. And that is through what? Chokhmah, which is chokhmah. What am I? I'm nothing. It's only Hashem. What's the higher level? The higher level we said is the bright light, which is the godly soul. Where does that come from? Where does that bittul? That's not just bittul that I want to turn my bodily functions into spiritual functions. I don't even want to, that I just become my neshama. It's even more. It's I want to give up my neshama to God. Meaning, my neshama is also nothing. Because to Hashem, my neshama is nothing. My neshama is nothing. Now, what's interesting is that in Kabbalah teaches us it's two levels of chachma. Chachma tata, chachma ilah. What is the two chachmas? What we just said, it's all one. The lower chachma is, what's chachma? Chachma really means nullifying yourself. There's a chachma, because we said chachma is koach ma. What am I? I don't have any strength, because you realize it's all Hashem. So you want to turn what? The first level is, the lower level is I just want to turn my bodily functions to spiritual function. The higher chachma, in chachma ilah, there's a word in Kabbalah for it. It's called ayin. It's nothing. What does it mean, it's nothing? It means that type of chachma comes from a place that we don't even know where it is because it's such a high level. That is the level of when a person can give up his life on the line in 1 second for Hashem. Where does that come from? That's that point of a Jew, the bright light. You see how everything fits in? Let's understand. So, we have the wick, which is the body. We have the black light, the dark light, which attaches to the wick, which is that shine that comes down from the godly soul onto the soul, the animal soul, and it turns it, which the Klipa Noga turns the bad into good. But it's still the lower idea. It's turning the bodily function, the bodily desires, the nature of it into spirituality. But then there's a higher level, we said. The level of the godly soul itself, and that has nothing to do with the body. It's not with the wick. If you look, it's the bright light surges out. It's above. Because that's it's called above and beyond. That is the place of ayin. It's from nowhere. It's right. It's not from the body. It's not from any of the sphere. It's not even in the 10 sfirot. It's not even it's beyond. It's in the essence of God itself. Because it's a piece of God. Now, let's explain something very interesting. This chachma is great because at the end of the day, this chachma is koach ma. What is my wisdom? Meaning, what is my strength? I have nothing. It's only Hashem. So you have the lower level and then you have the higher level. But how does a person actually, where in a person's life does it come forth that he's using the lower level or the higher level? Meaning, we're explaining it. Let's explain. When Hashem created the world, we'll give Akdama, we said as many times, His Or Ein Sof, his light that protruded out of his essence was everywhere. There was no place to create the worlds. What did Hashem do? Hashem, what it says is, He took the light and He hid it inside Himself and created a void, an empty space. This is the Eitz Chaim, right? It's the Arizal. And in the empty void, He put a bunch of worlds. And how do those worlds have life? He took after that, He made a little pipeline, and the pipeline brings down from the light that was outside the circle, and brings in a little bit, just enough to give life into the worlds, but enough that also the worlds don't explode, because if there's too much light, then it'll go back to what it was originally. So what we have is now, we have Hashem, in our eyes, obviously Hashem, we'll explain what I mean. Now, after Hashem created the world, we have two lights, basically. We have the light that surrounds the world. That's called Saviv Kol Olmin. In Kabbalah, it means Hashem surrounds the worlds. That's Hashem's light that was, after constriction, stayed around. And then there's a light that comes through, which is Mamali Kol Omen, that fills up the worlds. Now, the two levels of Chokhmah that we just said, of me mevatel myself to a degree of turning my physical into spiritual, and then the second one, which is my whole essence, even my neshama, not just I'm turning into spirituality, my neshama is nothing, meaning I'm just so part of Hashem in His essence, that represents these two things. It says, the Baal Shem Tov writes, brings in the Ramban, and many of them Kabbalah speak, that when a person davens, he has to have these two ideas in his mind. He has to have the idea that Hashem fills up the whole world, gives life to this whole world, and He surrounds all the worlds. The filling up of this world is a lower level, because it's after. It's because Hashem constricted and then He brought down from, so it's a lower level, right? That's a level that or is already now introduced into the worlds.
He's out today.
There's in the inside of the void, that means it has to do with. That already is something that I can understand, because it has to do with my life. That I can attach through contemplating that everything that's going on in this world, that wouldn't exist unless God is giving it sustenance. So that's the lower. So therefore, if that is everything, so then what am I doing? Koach ma. What's my wisdom? I don't have any strength. It's all Hashem that's giving life. Therefore, let me switch around the physicality. Let me switch the animal soul from the bad, which is the evil desires, into the good desires. Why? Because I want to go beyond. But then there's the way to tap into the R that's around, which that R is what? The original R, which is the R that's above, beyond all the worlds, which that I can't tap into, because that's nothing to do with anything that I feel or see. That's only coming from that what? Like we said, that place in the heart where a person could give his life up to Hashem any second, because we don't even know where it comes from. In Kabbalah, they call it from a place called Ayin, which is above Keter. It's from the sphere, the highest sphere, but above. Now, so when a person's davening, he can come to these two places. He can come to when a person is davening, we call it, he's on fire. Because that's representing the flame that's above the two levels. First, he has to concentrate on the lower level. To get to the higher level, you have to go first to the lower level. A person has to concentrate on the dark flame, which is the dark when I'm on fire. But what is that fire? The fire of the or that was after the constriction. When Hashem brought the or down here, so it has to do with, I want to serve Hashem because He's giving me life. I owe it to Him, all that. The second, the higher level is coming to that ash, that fire, that I become completely nullified in the essence. Not just in my physical, I'm not just nullifying my physicality, which is the animal soul, which is the dark light. I'm nullifying the upper light, which is the godly soul, which is, even my neshama has nothing, it's dust. There's a pasuk that says my neshama is dust. What does that mean? Because my neshama becomes one with Hashem, that it becomes nothing. Just like a ray of a sun, when it goes back to the actual sun, the ray is nothing. That's right, it's nullified. Now, so that's how we explain. Now, what's the last part of the or? Is the vessel. Where's the vessel? The vessel, the cup. Where's that in Judaism? Where's the vessel in Judaism? We know that it says when a person goes to Olam Haba, Gan Eden, after he's nifter, he has certain garments. And sometimes the garments have holes in it and different things. What are those garments? Those garments are the mitzvot and the Torah that he learned. Why do sometimes they have holes in it? Because it depends on the level of doing the mitzvot the person did. Let's explain. Everything we just explained is that the oil and the flame and the wick is all to what? Nullify yourself to Hashem on the lower level and the higher level. And that's what we need, the oil. Why do we need the oil? Because we said that the oil gives the sustenance that it should continue. Because if a person just came and I want to serve Hashem with such power, after a day it runs out. But after nullifying yourself to Hashem, it could stay for a long time. Right? Because you nullify to Hashem. That's the chokhmah, koach ma. And especially if you come to even the higher level, that you completely nullify to Hashem, even in your soul. Hold on. There's two levels of prayer, we said. The lower level of prayer is that I'm attaching myself to the light that fills up the world, which is the lower level of chokhmah, which is the lower level of nullification. And therefore that is that turns the bodily pleasure, the klipa noga, into this spirituality. But then there's even turning the spirituality into nothing, which is the higher level, which is the godly soul, which Rabbi Elazar ben Dor did when he was standing between the mountains and he couldn't handle it. His godly soul became so powerful that he just came one with Hashem. His own essence became nothing. He became part with Hashem. Therefore, he passed away because he left his body. He left everything. He left even the spiritual. He just became one with Hashem in the essence. So that's why we need the oil, because the oil keeps the sustenance. But now the question is, I need the vessel also. Why do I need the vessel? Because without the vessel, all this is nothing. You don't have a lamp, you have nothing. What's the vessel? The vessel is like this. Because a person can ask a question. Very nice, you're talking about connecting with Hashem and all these things. But can we actually connect with the essence of Hashem and all that? Of course not. We don't know what that is. There's only one way that we can. And that we spoke about in a couple of different shiurim. We spoke about through Torah and mitzvahs. We said that Hashem himself, his essence, he covered himself in the Torah and mitzvahs. So essentially the mitzvot and Torah is what? Is the essence of Hashem just when you're, meaning in the root of it. The root of it is the essence of Hashem. We spoke about this, remember? Now, obviously, the physicality of the mitzvahs isn't. But if you go back to the root, which is Ein Sof, you'll come to the essence. The Torah, which is mitzvahs. The Torah and mitzvahs is one. What do we say? What do we say is the garments of a human being when it comes to Gan Eden? His mitzvot. His mitzvot encompass the person. The mitzvot is the cup. Because the cup is what? How do I define Chokhmah? How do I define God? I can't. It's beautiful. What we said, all these ideas are beautiful. But how do I touch to it? How do I actually attach myself to it? By doing mitzvot. Because by doing mitzvot, you're attaching yourself to the essence of God. Because mitzvot and Torah is what, after many constrictions, it comes out. The essence of God being constricted after Ein Sof times comes out in the Torah mitzvot. That's how everything adds up. So let's review everything and understand how everything is amazing. We need, in order for us to, it's very nice. How do I attach myself to the essence of Hashem though? How do I mevatel myself? How do I nullify myself to the essence of Hashem when I don't know what the essence of Hashem is? It's impossible. So we understand because Hashem dressed his essence up in the Torah mitzvot. So through the Torah mitzvot, which is the vessel, because it's action, it's vessel, that's how I do it. That's how I can attach myself. So let's go through the 5 things. We started the shiur and we said that we find that a human being is compared to what a candle. And we said about the sfirot and all that, but then we want to understand what makes up the candle. So we said there's 5 things. There's the wick, which we just came out is the animal soul, the body, like the Zohar says. The Zohar says the wick is the body, meaning the bodily desires, which is the animal soul. There is the flame, which has 2 parts of it. The flame's lower part is the dark light, which is what just, I wake up out of nowhere and I have a rutz into what? To go beyond my physical reality and turn my physical reality, which is the bodily desires, and make it into what? Make the wick into what? To burn the wick. I'm burning the wick. I'm burning my bodily desires and wanting it to become spiritual. But that's the lower level. That comes from the animal soul, because that I'm busy with the animal soul. I'm switching around the animal soul, because we said the animal soul by a Jew is called klipa noga, which has good and bad, which is chet of Adam Rishon, which comes to the Eitz Hadat, which has good and bad. But then there's the higher level. The higher level is where I want to what? Not just nullify my physicality to beyond, I want to nullify even my spirituality to complete essence of Hashem, which is the higher light. That is the shining light. We said though, how does a person come to this? Through the oil. Because a person can come to it and what? And it burns out. It burns out literally. But we always say a person burns out. What happens? It comes from this. The wick burns out too quickly. You know when a person, who's a new Baal Tshuva, a lot of Baal Tshuvas, they burn out very quickly. Because what happens is they don't have the oil. So that huge lift that they have goes for a week, 2 weeks, but doesn't go on forever. Why is that? Because it's missing the oil. If the oil, what gives sustenance to the flame? That it should burn to the wick slowly. The oil, we said. The oil, one of the properties of the oil is that what? That it gives the flame, that it could burn the wick, but yet that it could burn it a long time. That's what we just said. Because oil, without oil, the person's Osiris, he wants to serve Hashem, will go on for a short while. But the oil gives it the property where it can burn slowly. It burns out the animal so slowly, so it goes on for a long time. And why do we need the oil for the higher light? Because we said... So why do we need the oil for the higher light? Also, because the higher light is also what? Also a bechina of, I want to be what? I'm using my chachma, but the chachma that comes in from a higher place, the chachma which is called nothingness, where we don't know where it's from. And that, by the way, is the second thing we said. What is the second part of the oil? That it gives the color to the oil, to the flame. This oil is so pure because this bittul, this nullification is so pure. It's at its root, at the essence of Hashem, that it's so bright. It's not that dark, and it's not busy with the animal soul. It's beyond. Now we asked, though. So we said the wick, the two parts of the flame, and the oil is what gives it that it shouldn't burn out quickly. Now we have the vessel, because we said it's very good and nice that you could contemplate, and we don't know where it comes from and all that. But a person could say, at the end of the day, I want to be, where am I mavatal myself to the metziut of Hashem, to the essence of Hashem? How do I do that? So, I'm sorry, I paused. But we skipped one point that we mentioned, and then we said those are the two properties of tefillah. The two properties of tefillah is, because tefillah is a way of what? Of davening to Hashem, which is making yourself, when you daven, you're nullifying yourself to Hashem, but there's two types. There's you're nullifying to the R, that after constriction, and that is the lower R, and that is connected the lower level of nullification, where I'm nullifying my physicality, which I see around me, which I could understand, right? I switch that around and turn it into a spiritual, which is the lower level. But then there's the higher level of the Or Ein Sof, which comes from the essence of Hashem. Originally, before, that is the higher nullification in the essence. That's the higher level. The question is, but we said, that's all good, but I need a vessel. I need to tap into this. So we said to tap into this is the vessel, is the cup. What's the cup? The cup dresses it. It's the garment. It's like the garment to everything that's in it, right? A human being, what's his garment? The person is inside his clothes, right? He's dressed in it. That's why it's called dressing. You're dressing yourself up in clothing. The cup dresses what? The light and the oil dresses all itself up into the vessel. All that I want to be mavatal myself has to go dress it itself up through a vessel. What is that vessel? The Torah mitzvot. Because we said Torah mitzvot, we know this from the Mekubalim, the Torah mitzvot, Hashem took his, we can't understand this because it's beyond, but we do understand that the Zohar says that a God, the Torah, and Jews is one. God in his essence. We don't know because when we see the Torah, what do you mean? This is God? So, yes, in the root of Torah and mitzvot and all that, it is God. So therefore, through the vessel of, I could connect myself to what? To the essence of God, and therefore I could get to both levels of me, to myself. Therefore the wick will burn, but it will burn slowly. So therefore, it won't just, I won't burn out. Like we said, Baal Tshuva, you will actually have the utensils to serve Hashem for a long time. And therefore, we will have a complete R. And this is what all the Zohar meant, that the flick is the wick is the human body. That's the animal, soul, the bodily desires. And that is, then the Zohar says the two lights. The first light takes care of the bodily desires. That is the lower self of the nullification that we said, which is the keneged, which represents the lower R that comes in after the constriction. Then we have the higher level, which is the bright light, which comes from the pure oil, which is pure because it's pure nullification to the essence. How? Through the Torah mitzvot, which adds the vessel to it, and then we could come to complete nullification, which is not just nullification to turn it into spirituality, even to becoming the spirituality. My spirituality becomes nothing, which we said in the Sham, the pasuk says, neshama is dust, because when a tzaddik looks at neshama, he says, my neshama is also nothing. It's only the essence of God. Who am I? That is the connection, and that is the pasuk. Ki ata neiri Hashem v'Hashem yigeh chashki. Hashem, you are my candle, because the candle teaches me that what? Nullification to Hashem, that it's all you, Hashem. It's all you, Yud-Ke Vav-Ke. Which is what? Hashem is Hashem. And that's what Shlomo HaMelech is also saying in the pasuk, Ner Hashem Nishmas Adam. It shines forth, because when a person utilizes these things, he is the shine of godliness, because he's one with God. That is the pshat in these two psukim. And that is why people meditate. And the Zohar says to meditate by a candle. Because when you're meditating by a candle, you're meditating on not the physical candle, you're meditating on the physical, but the spiritual root of the candles, which is the nullification, becoming one with Hashem, which is the whole point of meditating. Meditation is to become one with God. Bittul, nullification, nullifying yourself. If Bezrat Hashem, we should be able to really nullify ourselves. For me, it's a bracha also on the lower level, because how many people are actually even on the lower level that we take all our bodily desires and turn it. Bezrat Hashem, through that, we're able to come to the next level. And every time we light a ner, we should look at the physical ner, but see the ruchni as part of the ner. And obviously, when Hanukkah comes, we all know now why we light neiros in Hanukkah, because we said that the neiros of the Beis Hamikdash, and now we understand why the neiros of the Beis Hamikdash. Those 7 neiros was toward the middle, because the middle it's all to what? They're all nullified to the middle. What's the middle? Hashem Yitbarach. All the other ones are all nullified to one. They're all nullified to one. What is the one? Echad. Only Hashem is one. And that's what we say, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Nullifying ourselves completely, not just to the lower, but also to the higher level. Hashem is beyond everything. And that's the level of nullifications, yes. And that's the pshat in the pasuk of Shmuel. And now we could see one pasuk of Shmuel, we see how deep one pasuk, and this is probably just a taste of it, even though Baruch Hashem, we cover a lot. My bracha is B'ezrat Hashem, through this we'll mevat ourselves, and through that we'll come to Mashiach, and be zoicha B'ezrat Hashem to Gula with Rachmanis, with Adinim, and Me'erev Yomeinu, Amen, Shkoya Shekoach.